My wife Abby had a great fondness for watching movies. If I wanted to bring her joy, all I had to do was take her to a captivating film. However, it wasn't just any movie that would suffice. It had to belong to one of four genres: animation, action, adventure, drama, or romance. She particularly had a soft spot for romance movies, often referred to as chick flicks. Additionally, Abby had a preference for films featuring Tom Torino, Matt Wright, or Brad Talbot, as they were her favorite actors. Our initial date was when I brought Abby to watch in Seattle. Although Abby wasn't a huge fan of Tom Hanks, she adored the storyline of the movie. Years later, she confessed that she fell in love with me after watching that film. The reason why remains a mystery to me. Even after 12 years of marriage, Abby continues to captivate with her stunning appearance. Standing at 5 and weighing 115 lbs, she possesses an incredible figure. Her deep emerald green eyes beautifully contrast against her jet black hair. Whenever Abby dresses up, heads turn in admiration. As for myself, I'm John Sawyer, and I must say, I'm not too shabby either. Standing at 6 and weighing 180 lbs, I have sandy-colored hair and blue eyes. Many people have commented that we make a stunning couple. During my college days, I never had difficulty finding female companionship. However, when I met Abby, I knew she was the one I wanted. Even after all these years, I thought Abby felt the same way about me. We met in high school, fell in love, and our love blossomed throughout our 4 years at university. We tied the knot 3 months after graduation. Abby is my true love, my soulmate, my everything. I can't fathom a life without her. While we adore our 2 children, it can be challenging to be spontaneous with them around. However, tonight was going to be different. It was going to be a special night just for the 2 of us. We decided to go dancing in the city with 3 other couples. Since we anticipated staying out late and enjoying some drinks, we booked rooms at a downtown hotel. We made arrangements for my parents to take care of our 2 girls for the night. It was going to be an unforgettable evening. However, it turned out to be special in an unexpected way. When we arrived at the nightclub, something felt amiss, although I couldn't quite pinpoint it. The women appeared tense, and one of the men seemed rather smug. Among the 3 couples, I particularly enjoyed the company of George and Helen, as well as Bob and Anna. George worked as a software engineer, while Helen was a dedicated stay-at-home mom with 3 children. Bob owned his own plumbing company, and his wife handled the office work. The one couple I didn't particularly care for was Chad and Thelma. Honestly, Thelma was fine, but I found Chad to be unpleasant. However, Abby and Thelma had been college roommates and remained close friends, so I had to tolerate Chad's presence. As far as I could gather, Chad had some involvement in the movie industry. I believe he mentioned being an agent or something of that sort. It seemed he wasn't very successful, but Thelma held a well-paying job as a pharmaceutical representative. I am employed as a financial advisor at one of the larger brokerage firms. Initially, things were slow, but now I have more clients than I can handle. At my firm, once you reach a certain number of clients, they ask you to train someone new and pass on some of your clients. Naturally, I retain the most profitable ones for myself. I have already had to do this twice, and it seems like I will have to do it again soon. I am making a very comfortable living. Abby's career began as an administrative assistant for Mike Winston, an executive vice president at a regional bank. When our 2 daughters arrived, 1 year apart, Abby dedicated herself to staying at home with them until our youngest, Stacy, started 1st grade. One day, Mike called her and offered her a part-time job, as he had been promoted to president. Abby sought my opinion, and I encouraged her to seize the opportunity. Now, if you're thinking that I made a mistake in allowing Abby to return to work, and that she is having an affair with her boss, you would be completely mistaken. Mike is 62, bald, and, more importantly, completely devoted to his wife and 5 children. Anyway, something felt slightly off, but I didn't dwell on it. I was excited at an evening of dancing with my wife, and a night filled with love afterward. As we socialized at the event, we bumped into several other couples we knew. When you frequently go dancing, you tend to meet some genuinely pleasant people. We even ran into an old college friend, Fred Abbott, and his wife, Brenda. While I caught up with them, Abby and the others made their way to our table. I was about to join my wife as the music began, but then there was a commotion at the entrance. A crowd gathered, and Brenda gasped. "What's wrong?" Fred asked. "Don't you recognize him?" Brenda exclaimed. I glanced over and saw an incredibly handsome man. He was a bit shorter, maybe 5 or 5s, but undeniably good-looking. Both Fred and I confessed our ignorance. That's Brad Talbot, Brenda gushed. He and his fiancée, Rita Summers, are two of the hottest stars in Hollywood. Oh, right, Fred said, craning his neck to see past Brad. I wonder if Rita Summers is here too. John, on a scale of 1 to 10, Rita is at least a 15. Brenda playfully slapped her husband's arm. You would think of that. As I looked at Brad, I realized he was one of my wife's favorite actors. I wondered if I could get an autograph for her. However, what happened next completely stunned me. Brad walked right up to our table and asked my wife to dance. Without hesitation, she jumped up and danced the next 4 songs with him. Feeling angry, I returned to the table and sat down. My wife hadn't even bothered to ask me if I was okay with her dancing with someone else. When the 5th song started, I tried to cut in, but Chad's glass fell, and he cut his hand. John, could you help me with this? He asked. I glanced at my wife dancing and then at Chad. I should have gone to my wife, but instead, I followed Chad to the men's room. The cut turned out to be minor, but I helped him clean it and wrap it in a paper towel. When I returned to the table, I caught a glimpse of my wife leaving with Brad. I started to follow them, with Chad close behind. When we reached outside, I saw Abby getting into a car with Brad. I began running to catch up, but Chad tripped me. I quickly got up and yelled, "What's wrong with you?" Chad smirked and said, "Brad's just taking your wife for a ride." Thelma arrived shortly after and informed us that it's a dream date for Abby. She explained how much Abby likes Brad, and we arranged for him to take her out. That's my wife, I shouted. You didn't think I should know about this? Abby replied, You would have said no. Chad smirked and added, Just go with the flow. Infuriated, I yelled, Forget you. You go with this flow. I punched Chad directly on the nose, and the sound of it breaking was the only satisfying thing about that night. Thelma then attacked me, punching and attempting to kick me. Fortunately, Fred had witnessed the situation and followed us outside. He quickly intervened, grabbing Thelma and moving her away from me. Thelma started screaming, but Fred calmly stated, No, he didn't. You two attacked him first. He was just defending himself. Thelma went into a frenzy and called 911. The police arrived about 10 minutes later and began taking statements. Fred stuck to his story, and I did the same, mentioning that Chad had tripped me initially. The people who had gathered after the commotion only witnessed Thelma attacking me and informed the officers that they saw me trying to get away from her. In the end, Chad and Thelma were arrested. Devastated, I returned to our table and found the two women smiling. Helen asked, Where's everyone else? I replied, struggling to control my anger. Chad and Thelma got arrested for assaulting me. Abby left with Brad and seemed pretty happy about it. Anna said, That wasn't the plan. She was supposed to step outside with Brad, take a few pictures, and then come back. I responded, My wife and Thelma apparently didn't tell you the real plan, as I headed to the bar. Fred caught up to me and asked, Are you going to be okay? I admitted, I don't know what's going on. I hope my wife's just out for a ride with that movie star and will be back soon. But when she comes back, we need to have a serious talk. Listen, John, Fred said with concern. I don't want to upset you more, but Brenda told me that Brad Talbot is known for pursuing married women. He seems to enjoy luring them into affairs. I hope Abby's not one of them, but you should be prepared for the worst. My heart sank, and I didn't know what to do. However, I assured Fred that I would be fine before returning to the table. I tried calling Abby on her cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. As I sat down, the atmosphere was tense. The wives looked ashamed, and their husbands were furious. I kept attempting to call Abby, but with no success. Eventually, the other couples decided to head back to the hotel. I stayed behind, hoping Abby would return. I waited for half an hour before finally making my way to the hotel. I remained at the location until 3 o'clock in the morning, dialing Abby's phone every 10 minutes out of frustration. Eventually, I checked out and returned home, arriving around 4 o'clock. I sat on the couch, and before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. The sunlight streaming in woke me up at 7 o'clock, and Abby still hadn't returned. There were no messages from her on my phone, so I decided to check our Facebook page. To my dismay, it was flooded with pictures of Brad and Abby leaving the nightclub, heading to his house, and Abby entering his house with Brad by her side. Curiosity led me to browse Hollywood websites, and they were abuzz with news of Brad's latest conquest. Anger consumed me. Immediately, I contacted my lawyer, whose call was forwarded to his home due to it being a Saturday. Initially displeased at the interruption, my lawyer's tone changed when I explained the situation. He advised me to wait until Abby came home and provided an explanation. Around 11 o'clock, Abby walked through the door with a wide smile. However, it immediately vanished when she saw my expression. "We didn't do anything," she blurted out quickly. "We just talked all night. I should have asked you, but I was certain you would say no. You know how much I love movies, and last night with Brad Talbot felt like a fairy tale." "Nothing happened, John. I still love you with all my heart." Glaring at her, I felt my anger reaching its boiling point. "I want you to pack your things and go to your parents' house." "I can't even look at you right now," I said, my words laced with clenched teeth. Abby's expression shifted from annoyance to fear. "Why are you blowing this out of proportion?" she retorted, hands on her hips. "Outside of our circle, no one knows anything. Helen and Anna understand that it was just harmless fun for me, you jerk," I snapped, causing Abby to flinch. It was the first time I had spoken to her in such a manner. "It's all over the news. There are photos of you and Brad leaving the club, going to his house, and by now, there are probably shots of you leaving his house this morning. I believe our marriage is done. So get your things and leave before I do something I'll regret." "Please, John," Abby pleaded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I think you're blowing this out of proportion. I love you so much, and I'm sorry for upsetting you. But nothing happened. I thought you would understand once you knew. We need to work through this. Think about the girls." "You didn't think about them when you rushed off with that jerk of a movie star," I hissed. Abby paled at my words and then broke down in tears. "I'm so sorry, John. I never thought it would escalate into such a mess. I messed up. Please forgive me." "You're right." "You didn't think," I said, my anger escalating. I knew I had to get her out before I did something I would regret. I left her standing there and made my way to our bedroom. Grabbing a suitcase, I began packing her clothes. "I'll do it," Abby said, her voice choked with sobs. After a few minutes, she slowly packed the suitcase and carried it downstairs. I didn't offer to help. I waited until she left and slammed the door hard. Peeking out the window, I saw her place the bag in the trunk and bury her head in her hands. I wanted to comfort her, but my anger was still too intense. After about 20 minutes, she started the car and drove away. Without hesitation, I called my parents and explained what had occurred. I asked them to keep the girls with them a while longer and to inform Abby, should she show up, that I had them. They agreed, leaving me alone to contemplate the tangled mess my marriage had become. I replayed everything in my mind. Abby insisted that nothing had happened. Could it possibly be true? I didn't know, but my instincts screamed that she was lying. Lying. Could I find it in myself to forgive her and move forward? Perhaps, if no one else knew, as she believed. But now, with the whole situation plastered across the internet, I couldn't find a way to salvage our marriage. The desire for revenge against both of them consumed me, but I struggled to come up with a plan. I spent at least an hour crying, pounding on walls and doors as I aimlessly wandered. I felt utterly powerless. There seemed to be no way for me to get back at Brad, a prominent figure in Hollywood. While a divorce would have financial implications, I was willing to work from home and fight for full custody of our daughters if it came to that. I believed I had a strong case, considering I was the more stable parent. Abby probably never anticipated that her actions could jeopardize her relationship with our girls, but the thought of a divorce tearing our daughters apart devastated me even further. Around 1 o'clock, as I was preparing more coffee, the phone rang. So far, the media hadn't discovered my number, but I knew it wouldn't last. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Is this John Sawyer, and is your wife's name Abby?" A woman's voice inquired. "Not interested in engaging with reporters," I replied sharply. She chuckled softly. "Good, I hate them too." "Who is this?" I asked, ready to end the call. "I'm Rita Summers," she said gently. "You probably know my fiancé, Brad Talbot." "Yeah, I know that jerk," I replied, eager to conclude the conversation. "Do you love your wife?" Rita asked out of the blue. I sighed. Despite everything, I still loved her. But given all that had happened, I couldn't see how we could salvage our marriage. My heart raced as I had to sit down and contemplate. Finally, I responded, "Yes, I want to save my marriage, but I don't see how." Once again, there was that soft giggle, followed by a sigh. I've loved Brad for a long time. We've known each other since childhood. He came from a dysfunctional family, just like me. His father was a womanizer, and his mother despised all men, including Brad. She never showed him any love, no matter what he did. It was never enough for her. He has been involved with married women before. I think it's his way of seeking the love his mother never gave him. My family was messed up too. My mother was an alcoholic, and my father abused me. Back then, Brad was my rock, and I loved him with all my heart. But then, he moved away when his parents split. I cried for weeks. We met again in Hollywood after we both found success. I had heard about Brad's past, and I was cautious about starting something with him. However, when we saw each other, we fell in love all over again. When we got engaged, he promised he was done with other women. When I asked him about your wife, he said nothing happened. I can't prove it either way, but just the thought of losing Brad is tearing me apart. Yeah, my wife said nothing happened too, I confessed. And the thought of losing her hurts just as much. Do you believe her? Rita asked. No, I don't, I admitted. Me neither. I know Brad, and it's unlike him to invite a woman over and do nothing. But I guess stranger things have happened. Still, I assume something did happen, so I want him to feel the pain he's caused me, and I want your wife to experience the same. I'm uncertain if that will resolve the situation, but I'm hopeful that we can make progress with our respective partners. I'm on board so far, I said, but I questioned how we would accomplish this. We do it together, she replied. First, we need to initiate conversations with our partners about reconciliation. I'll reach out to Brad, but I'm not ready to talk to him at the moment. After a couple of weeks, I'll start. You should allow your wife to come home around the same time. I'll inform you when. In the meantime, keep your distance and refrain from being intimate with her. Why let her come back? I inquired. Because once she's home, we'll have dinner together, and I'll explain my plan. I still need to work out some details. Although I remained unsure about the plan, I didn't have any better ideas, so I decided to go along with it. First, I called my parents and informed them that I would pick up the girls in 30 minutes. Then I contacted my administrative assistant, Joni, and informed her that I would be working from home for the following week. Judging by her sympathetic tone, I could tell she already knew about Brad and Abby. She offered her assistance in any way she could. Next, I dialed Abby's parents' house. Abby's father answered, sounding remorseful. He had seen the news and felt embarrassed. When I requested to speak to Abby, she broke down in tears, apologizing and expressing her desire to come home and talk. Abby, I said calmly, I think it's best for us to have some space for a while. I'll be working from home next week. You have work from Monday through Wednesday. Let's plan for you to pick up the girls on Wednesday evening. We can discuss everything then. I'll take them on Sunday evening. Please, John, she cried, I want to come home now. I want us to be a family. Don't you want that too? I thought we were, I replied sadly, but now I'm not sure. I'll see you on Wednesday around 5. I picked up the girls and explained that Mommy would be spending a few days with Pop, and Granny. They had many questions, but they soon forgot about it when we arrived at Chuck E. Cheese's. After a few hours of games and dinner, we headed home. As soon as we walked in, the phone began ringing. I didn't recognize the number and ignored it, but it continued to ring every 5 minutes. Eventually, I unplugged it around 6. Then, my cell phone rang. It was Abby. Why aren't you picking up? She snapped. Because it's just reporters asking about your alleged affair with Brad Talbot, I retorted. There's no affair, Abby insisted. I told you nothing happened. Well, then you need to make the world believe it because they certainly don't, I replied sarcastically. There was complete silence on the other end of the line. Then Abby asked if she could speak to the girls. I handed them the phone and listened as they excitedly told her about their day at Chuck E. Cheese's. Eventually, Stacy passed the phone back to me, saying that Mommy wanted to talk to me. Abby pleaded to come home, but I told her I needed more time. On Wednesday evening, Abby showed up around 4 instead of 5. I was slightly irritated that she didn't follow my instructions, but I chose to overlook it. The girls were overjoyed to see her, and Abby showered them with affectionate kisses. When she came to kiss me, I instinctively stepped back, which seemed to hurt and annoy her. "So that's how it's going to be," she said irritably. "Maybe I should just take the girls and leave, if that's what you want," I calmly replied, starting to walk away. "No, Abby," she quickly interjected, sounding a bit panicked. "Let's sit down and talk about our problems." The girls went to pack their overnight bags, thinking they were visiting their grandparents. "What are we going to do?" Abby asked after an awkward silence. "I wish I knew," I replied. "Right now I feel hurt, embarrassed, and angry. Any ideas on how to address these feelings?" "All I can do is apologize," Abby said, her voice trembling slightly. "I messed up big time. Please, please forgive me. I don't want to lose you." "Abby, it's not that simple," I said, sitting back and crossing my arms. "To the whole world, I'm seen as a fool. My wife cheated on me, and I didn't do anything about it." Abby started crying. "I never meant to hurt you. I was just so excited to meet Brad Talbot and see his house. I knew you'd be a little upset with me, but I never thought it would escalate into such a mess." "Abby, I genuinely hope we can work through this," I said, and her face momentarily lit up. "But I've also spoken to a lawyer. If things lead to a divorce, I'll be seeking full custody of the girls. You should consider getting your own attorney." "I don't want a divorce," she cried. "And you can't take my girls away from me." "Abby, I'm not saying we'll divorce, but we have to be prepared for the worst," I explained. "I don't want to hurt you," I fibbed, "but with all the attention you're receiving, the courts might favor my custody request." "Please don't," Abby pleaded. "I'll do anything to fix us." "Why don't we keep talking?" I suggested. "Let's have lunch next Sunday when you drop off the girls." "If you keep the girls with you," she said, her voice carrying a hint of anger, "I won't appreciate all this back and forth. It's not good for them." "If you do that, then I'll have to initiate divorce proceedings right away," I warned. "And remember, your reputation is tarnished. I doubt the courts will view you favorably." Abby seemed to deflate. "I won't do that. I don't want a divorce." At the beginning of the second week, I returned to my office. My assistants were understanding, but some of my clients lacked sympathy. 2 of them found the situation amusing and began teasing me. Politely asking them to stop yielded no results, so I decided to terminate our business relationship and transfer their portfolios elsewhere. Despite their attempts to apologize, I made it clear that our business was over. Word spread among my clients, and the gossip about my wife and Brad came to a halt. Around 2 p.m., Rita called me. "Do you have plans for tonight?" she asked. When I replied negatively, she responded, "Good, because you're having dinner with me at the room at 7. Dress code is formal." Then she hung up. I was taken aback when Rita mentioned that she had made reservations at the glamorous bistro, the most upscale restaurant in town. Getting a table there usually takes a long time, and it's quite pricey. At 7 o'clock, I arrived and was guided to a private dining room at the back. The room was beautifully decorated with a lavish touch, featuring a plush sofa. My mind couldn't help but wander, imagining what might have transpired on that couch. About 5 minutes later, Rita Summers walked in, and as I stood up, I couldn't help but notice her breathtaking beauty. I was certain that the entire restaurant would have turned their heads to catch a glimpse of her entrance. She appeared to be around 5 tall, with long blonde hair, warm brown eyes, and a figure that commanded attention. However, it was her smile that truly captivated you. It had a way of making you feel alive. I couldn't fathom why Brad would stray from a woman like her. "Can I call you John?" she asked as she took her seat across from me. I nodded. "And what should I call you?" I inquired. "Rita, of course," she replied with a soft laugh that brought a smile to my face. We ordered drinks and engaged in conversation. I shared a bit about my job, but mostly I regaled her with funny stories about my daughters or my awkward teenage years. As the waiter returned to take our order, I didn't want to rush Rita, but I was eager to hear her plan. I desperately wanted to salvage my marriage, but I had no idea how to proceed. Once we finished our meal, Rita leaned back in her chair. "First off, John," Rita began with a sad smile, "that slimy Chad Tompkins orchestrated this entire mess. He thinks he's some big-shot movie agent, but he's nothing more than a pimp. He preys on naive individuals, especially married women, to cozy up with movie stars. You wouldn't believe how many people he has ensnared in these celebrity entanglements. You're talking to someone who knows firsthand, I growled, expressing my anger. Although I didn't realize Chad's exact role until now, at least I managed to get him arrested. Rita's eyes lit up. That's good news. But don't be too hard on your wife. Brad could charm the socks off Mother Teresa. Your wife isn't the first married woman to fall for his act, but I'm determined to make her the last. And if I can't achieve that, what I have in mind will at least make him and your wife pay for the pain they caused us. I can't promise that after my plan unfolds, either of us will still be with our partners. But either way, we'll have the satisfaction of not allowing them to escape the consequences of their betrayal. Rita's leniency toward my wife surprised me, but I was relieved to hear that there would be repercussions. Now, I was eager to learn about her proposed plan. So, what's your plan? I asked. Before I spill the beans, she said, I just want to say, John, you are one handsome man, and you possess charm. Your wife made a colossal mistake, risking your marriage. If we had met under different circumstances, I might have been interested. That's very kind of you to say, I responded. But we both know we come from different worlds. Besides being stunning, you're also incredibly compassionate. You're too kind, she replied. We may come from different social circles, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm drawn to you. Thank you. I responded eagerly, curious to hear her plan. So, what's the next step? Over the next 2 weeks, I plan to become one of your clients, she explained. Excuse me, I'm not following, I said, puzzled. Yes, you provide financial advice, right? Rita smirked. Yes, I do, I replied. Still unsure of where this was heading, I asked. So, I'll be investing some money with you? Exactly, she confirmed. But we'll need to have a few meetings to discuss the details. I think 4 meetings should suffice, 2 at your office and 2 over lunch. I'll choose the locations. All right, I said, still uncertain of the purpose. I can set up an account, but you'll need to invest at least $10,000. Oh, I'll be investing much more than that, she said, her smile widening. Meanwhile, you won't tell your wife that I'm your client. You'll keep meeting with her to talk about reconciliation. After 2 weeks, you'll let her move back home, but you won't be intimate with her. Then, on October 15th, you and your wife will attend the Critical Reading Gala, a charity event I've been involved with for years. Most people don't know I'm associated with it, which is how I prefer it. I usually attend every other year, but I'll be there this year, and you and your wife will join me. All right, I said, following along until the mention of the charity gala. I know those tickets cost $220,000 each. I can't justify spending that much. Rita giggled again, flashing me a smile that sent a tingle down to my toes. Don't worry, your tickets will be complimentary. You'll simply tell your wife that a client gave them to you. I'm still not seeing how this helps, I said, feeling frustrated. Well, you see, John, Rita began. Part of the entertainment for the night is an escort auction. But not the kind of escort you're thinking, she giggled. We auction off willing men to the women in attendance. The highest bidder gets to put a sort of slave collar on them, and then the men are at the mercy of the winning women. Rita explained with a laugh before continuing, most of the men are bachelors, but married men also participate, allowing their wives to bid on them. Occasionally, a married man is won by someone other than his wife. Those married men usually behave because if they don't, their wives would be furious. However, at this year's gala, a married man will be auctioned off, and his wife won't be the winning bidder. And what happens afterward won't be innocent. I still had a puzzled look on my face. Rita laughed and patted my hand. You're the married man who will be auctioned off, and I'll be the winning bidder. So all you have to do is rent a tuxedo, buy your wife a new dress, and be my guest. Suddenly, it clicked. Rita's plan was brilliant. Both Brad and Abby would experience what we had gone through. I understood that this was all a charade, but simply spending the evening with Rita Summers, while everyone assumed the worst, would help restore balance. It would shift the attention away from me as the guilty party and onto Brad. Additionally, it would allow my wife to empathize with the hurt and embarrassment I had experienced. Perhaps then, we could pursue counseling and move past this messy situation. The following weeks passed swiftly. During Rita's first visit to my office, the excitement among the women there was palpable. Our discreet lunch meetings took place in private restaurants, although I couldn't fathom why we needed such secrecy. Most of our discussions could have occurred in my office. Nonetheless, we mostly shared stories, enjoying our lunches and gaining insights into Rita and Brad's relationship. I discovered that she genuinely loved him and would be devastated if they were to break up. However, she was prepared to leave him if he continued his old ways. A week before the gala, I allowed Abby to return home, but I made it clear that I would be sleeping in the guest room. She seemed hurt but didn't protest. On the Wednesday before the gala, I arrived home with the tickets, and Abby's eyes lit up. She began excitedly talking about the celebrities who would be in attendance. Then, she scolded me for spending so much money. I reassured her, explaining that it didn't cost me anything. One of my clients had given me the tickets, and I thought it would be a fun evening. By the way, I think you should get a new dress for the occasion, something stylish. Abby was overjoyed. I almost felt sorry for her, but then I recalled that evening when I had believed it would be enchanting, only to end up feeling foolish. It was time for her to comprehend my pain. When we arrived at the venue, approximately 500 people were already present. At the check-in, there was a table where attendees could sign up for the auction. I noticed a line of men filling out forms, and there were 5 exceptionally good-looking guys in the queue. Seizing the opportunity, I turned to Abby and innocently asked, "What do you think about that table? It's for charity, and we didn't pay for the tickets. How about I sign up, and you can bid on me?" Abby chuckled, but her laughter lacked Rita's infectious quality. "I don't have any money, and I didn't bring my wallet because it wouldn't fit in this bag," she replied, following Rita's advice. "Here's $1,000, I offered. "You probably won't need to spend more than $50, but it's for charity, so offer at least $200. "You're worth the entire $1,000 and more," Abby declared, beaming. I joined the line and filled out the form. As I approached the front, I glanced at the list and noticed that about 18 or 20 men had already signed up. If I hadn't known that this was all orchestrated, I would have never mustered the courage to do it. Just as I was about to leave, a woman at the desk asked if I had indicated that I was married. I nodded, and she handed me another form. "I sincerely hope that your wife is accompanying you, otherwise, you won't be able to participate. She needs to complete and sign this form." I gestured to Abby and explained the requirements. She promptly filled it out. What Abby didn't realize, as she hadn't read the form, was that by signing it, she was consenting to let the winning bidder make any request of me. Once the paperwork was finished, we proceeded to locate our table. Rita had arranged for us to sit with 2 rising starlets, a popular television anchor, and 2 actors from a national soap opera. My wife was captivated, not only by the individuals at our table, but also by the presence of other celebrities at the gala. When the auction commenced, all the men offering themselves were called forward. I smiled at my wife and stepped onto the stage. As it turned out, there were 24 participants, and I'm certain it was Rita's plan to save me for last. By the time I took the spotlight, they had already raised well over $300,000. I must admit, the bidding was spirited and entertaining. "Our final contestant is a local gentleman," declared the announcer, a well-known game show host. "His name is John Sawyer, and he's married with 2 children. I'm sure his wife is somewhere out there, breaking the piggy bank. Shall we start the bidding at $50? I believe he's worth at least $100. An older lady in the front row shouted, "Can you handle dishes, dear?" I chuckled and replied, "I can wash and dry them." The crowd erupted in laughter. "That's more than my husband can manage," chimed in another elderly woman. "I'll offer $200. Soon enough, the bid soared to $500. Then, to my astonishment, Abby's voice rang out, "I'll bid $1,000. The crowd cheered, but almost instantly, a younger woman countered with $22,000. Before I knew it, the bid had reached $5,000. I glanced at Abby, who appeared utterly bewildered, and simply shrugged at her. From the back of the room, a bid of $10,000 emerged, swiftly followed by one for $15,000. If I hadn't known that it was all orchestrated, I might have let it go to my head. The bid climbed to $25,000, and I started to feel a bit apprehensive. I had thought that a few $1,000s would seal the deal, but this was far more than I had expected. Finally, from the far side of the room, I heard Rita's voice. I bid $100,000. There was a stunned silence, not only due to the amount, but also because of the identity of the bidder. Rita Summers moved closer to the stage as the crowd erupted in cheers. She smiled up at me and then addressed the audience, saying, "And I don't even care if he can do dishes." The room exploded with applause. I must admit, I found myself blushing intensely. Rita approached me and placed the customary necklace around my neck, giving me a gentle kiss on the lips. As prearranged, we returned to where Abby was seated. She was taken aback, unsure of what to do or say. Ian leaned over and softly kissed her on the lips, then handed her the car keys. "Best laid plans, Abby," I said. "As I understand the rules, I am Miss Summers for the next 12 hours. I'll see you back at the house." Rita and I shared a few dances at the gala. During these dances, she playfully nibbled on my ear. I could see Abby watching me with a shocked expression. When Rita took my hand and led me out of the ballroom, I noticed Abby's lips beginning to tremble. After the gala, Rita took me to another nightclub in a limousine. We danced and conversed there for an hour. Then we attended a private screening of a new movie, filled with A-list Hollywood celebrities. In my opinion, the film was terrible, and Rita agreed. However, when we spoke to the director, we both praised it. Later, the limo drove us to a sketchy neighborhood. Rita explained that the two cars trailing behind us were part of her security detail. She pointed out two rundown houses across the street. "That one with the porch light still on used to be my home," she said. "The one across the street was where Brad lived." It wasn't as rough a neighborhood back then, but it still had its challenges. It was nearly 3 o'clock a.m. when we arrived at Rita's condo. She explained that she owned 6 condos, one in Hollywood, one in New York, one in Florida, 2 in Europe, and 1 in South America. This particular condo spanned 3 stories, equivalent to the size of 2 regular homes. In the den, Rita poured me a drink as I settled onto the couch. I couldn't help but chuckle. "I wish I had a camera to capture Abby's reaction," I said. "I almost feel guilty about all this, but not quite." Rita sat closely beside me, placing her hand on my knee. "John, be honest with me," she said. "Do you truly believe your wife when she says nothing happened? Neither of us can prove it, but deep down, I think something did occur." I replied sadly, "That's why it still hurts so much." Rita's anger was evident as she spoke. "I understand, John, and I'm almost certain that Brad had an affair with your wife." With that, she leaned in and tenderly kissed me. I was taken aback by her proposition. I had assumed that we would go to Rita's home and sleep separately, allowing everyone to believe we were intimate when we weren't. But now, she was offering herself to me. It didn't take me long to decide. Perhaps, if I were a better man, I would have declined. However, I was still wounded by my wife's actions, and who would pass up the opportunity to be with Rita Summers? We kissed passionately on the couch for about 20 minutes. It was exhilarating to be in such close proximity to such a stunning woman. Eventually, she took my hand and led me to her bedroom. Once inside, Rita began to dance. Since our first kiss, I had been captivated by Rita, and watching her dance intensified my desire. When Rita undressed, she guided me onto her bed. Although my wife possessed skill, I found Rita's expertise even more pleasurable. Perhaps it was the novelty of it all, but in that moment, I didn't care. As I approached the climax, I let Rita know. Rita and I shared a special morning together, filled with intimate conversations and tender moments that deepened our connection. Her kind words and gentle touch enveloped us in warmth and coziness. We laughed, held each other, and lost track of time, reveling in the joy of being together. Our bond grew stronger, and we began to trust each other more as we spent more time together. The way Rita looked at me made me feel cherished and valued. Her eyes held promises of many more delightful moments to come. As the morning sun illuminated the room, we realized we had spent a significant amount of time simply enjoying each other's company. Despite the lateness of the hour, Rita's laughter reassured me. It was one of those mornings where everything felt perfect, being with someone who understood and cared deeply for you. It reminded me of the immense happiness that comes from having such a person in your life. "Remember, your wife wasn't worried when you were waiting at home," Rita playfully reminded me. I chuckled, and afterward, we showered together. Once dressed, Rita prepared eggs for me while we awaited the arrival of the limousine. During the ride home, a sense of calm washed over me. If Abby was willing, I believed we could begin the process of moving past everything. Upon entering our home, I found Abby in tears in the living room. I wasn't sure if you were going to come back, she said, her voice filled with anguish. The news is buzzing about Rita Summers paying $100,000 for a night with you. At first, I thought it was just an act of revenge, but then I saw how she looked at you. If she was willing to spend that much, she must genuinely care about you. But I don't blame you, considering what I did. Is there any hope for us? First of all, Abby, I lied. Nothing happened, I confessed. Initially, she stared at me with a hint of anger, but it quickly dissipated. Rita is actually a new client of mine, I explained. She felt it was only fair, given what Brad did to me. Besides, she's the one who provided me with the tickets. Normally, she anonymously donates $100,000 every year. This time, she did it publicly to send a message to her fiancé. So you're right, it was about getting back at Brad. Whether we have a future or not is up to you. If you're willing to work on our marriage and attend counseling, I'm on board too. Abby hurried into my arms, and I kissed her passionately. Then I guided her to our bedroom, filled with hope for the future. I mustered up the energy, and we made love twice. Afterward, I drifted back to sleep until my two daughters jumped onto the bed around 2 in the afternoon. We had a peaceful dinner with the girls, and once they were tucked in bed, Abby and I sat on our patio, holding hands. In that moment, I felt confident that we could repair our marriage and move forward together. Epilogue: Abby and I sought assistance from a counselor named Wendy, and she played a significant role in resolving our issues. Surprisingly, Wendy was tougher on Abby than I had anticipated. I assumed she might be more understanding because she's a woman, but she pointed out that Abby had planned her affair while I hadn't. Although we both insisted that nothing physical happened, I don't think Wendy fully believed us. Nevertheless, she emphasized that seeking solace in someone other than our spouses was a betrayal in itself. Abby blushed deeply during most of those sessions. Wendy somewhat absolved me, seeing my night with Rita as a form of retaliation against her fiancé, which was true, but Wendy wasn't aware of my significant involvement in planning it. Nonetheless, the counseling sessions proved to be very beneficial. There was an unexpected outcome amidst all the chaos. Abby no longer enjoys going to the movies or watching them on TV. However, she still accompanies the girls if they want to see a children's movie. Regarding Chad and Thelma, I dropped the charges against Thelma, explaining to the authorities that she believed she was protecting her husband. However, I proceeded with the charges against Chad, resulting in a 3-month sentence in the county detention center. We severed ties with Chad and Thelma, and Abby no longer communicates with Thelma. They had a major falling out because Abby holds Thelma responsible for nearly ruining our marriage. I won't pretend to understand my wife's reasoning on this matter. Rita and Brad tied the knot in what was hailed as the wedding of the century, with over 100 guests. If you weren't present, you weren't considered anybody in Hollywood. Abby and I didn't receive an invitation, but I did send Brad a wedding gift. I purchased a set of bull's horns, sliced them in half, and sent them along with a note. The message was clear: stay away from my wife, and I'll stay away from yours. At the time, I was still quite angry with Brad. However, Rita assured me that he found the gift incredibly amusing. He even framed the note and proudly displayed it in his study. As is customary in Hollywood, their marriage barely lasted a year. True to her word, when Rita caught wind of Brad's wandering eye, she filed for divorce. The split was amicable, and they remained friends. It's a pity, though. Rita confided in me that she truly loved him. From what she shared about their relationship, it was evident they had a profound connection. However, sadly, it wasn't enough to keep them together. Oh, and Rita is still one of my clients. When we set up her account, she deposited a substantial sum of $1 million. I half expected her to close the account after her revenge plan had played out, but she decided to stick with it. When the balance reached $1.5 million, she added another $2 million. Although we haven't met face-to-face since the gala, we do occasionally connect via FaceTime, usually about 4 times a year. Our conversations revolve around her investments, and sometimes we simply catch up on life. Rita is astute when it comes to business and surprisingly conservative with her investments. As for her political leanings, I'm in the dark. Even though our quarterly portfolio updates take about 20 minutes, we end up spending an hour or two chatting about everything else. After her split from Brad, Rita jokingly mentioned that she should have chosen me over him. I laughed it off, reminding her that we come from different worlds. Since then, she playfully teases me about keeping an eye on me. She even jokes that if the stars align and I find myself single while she's done with acting, she'll make a move for me. I understand that it may be just a fleeting idea, but it's a comforting notion to cherish. Abby and I are nearing our 10th wedding anniversary. While we've encountered a few obstacles along the journey, our marriage has been overwhelmingly wonderful. Looking back, I am certain that without Rita's assistance, I might have considered divorcing Abby. Now, I can't imagine my life without her. Oh, and there's an additional piece of news. Abby is pregnant, and we are eagerly awaiting the arrival of our baby boy. I am overflowing with excitement.